Hello, Power Card Games and Comics fans! I don't know what I'm doing here.
Boom.
Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Wednesday Warrior, sponsored by Power Card Games and Comics in relatively bright and sunny Port Ewing, New York. My name is Skylar Hathaway.
I'm Chris Potter.
What do we got, Chris?
This week for comics proper, things we're actually going to be talking about in depth, we got Nightwing 113 and Black Panther number 3. Ultimate Black Panther number 3.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It's not normal Black Panther.
No, it's
Ultimate Black Panther.
Yeah, is there even a normal Black Panther run going?
I think there is. I wouldn't be reading it, so I wouldn't know.
I think that got canceled.
Damn.
It was by Eve Ewing.
I remember, yeah.
She was doing alright.
Yeah.
We had some trouble this week figuring out what we were going to do because this was a really good week in comics.
Yeah.
So both me and Chris have a bunch of honorable mentions. I'm going to start those off before we get into the meat of the sandwich here.
All right.
We got Helena Windhorn. My reason for putting this on honorable mentions is this would be on the show if it just had a little bit more to it. It's a pretty basic story so far about this woman who's going to help this girl become a woman in civilization, and she's slowly realizing that the girl's parentage, both the grandfather and the father, had something like fantasy mystery around them.
I forget the author's name, but it's the Conan guy.
C.K. Cole.
No, not in the comic. In real life, Tom King is really basing this on the stories of the guy who wrote the Conan novels. He mentioned a couple times.
No idea. I didn't know that at all. I didn't even collect that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. The art is what's bringing the book the heat
for sure.
Is Bill Everly is doing a really good job on it, cover to cover. And there's just some really interesting ideas, but it's not filled with depth or anything. It's not like doing a character study.
Right.
It's not trying to say anything about anything in particular. It's just kind of telling the story of this woman and this girl and the things that are surrounding her life.
I will give it a little bit more credit than that. I think we're kind of waiting on the depth. I think all of that is there. We're just waiting for the book to find itself a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really in the introductory moments, and honestly, I think it's good that we're ramping up to something thematic. There's this thing going on with the present a little bit, and this woman in her older life.
Yeah.
In this issue, we learned she passed away, and then we're listening to this guy who interviewed her 3 years ago or something. And I think there's something there. I think we're getting to a commentary on probably fantasy, on life to some extent. I think all of that is behind the surface. We're just kind of waiting.
Yeah, to see where it's going. It's only on issue 2.
Yeah.
I hope I could read this for 6, 12 issues, however he wants to do it.
For sure. And I could always look at Bill Everly's art. I think she's just such a talent and very unique in current comics. I think she has one of the finer lines out of anyone.
Yeah.
Even a Fabok who's using a ton of hatching and stuff. I think her line might even be thinner.
Yeah, the microns she's using are tiny. There are some really tiny lines that you don't even know how she fits space between.
And almost
lines.
no black spotted, really. But very rarely.
I don't know if she's using a ruler, but for those tiny lines, they're very straight.
Yeah.
Really incredible stuff. You got to wonder where this person built their Rolodex of talent from.
Right.
I wonder where Bill Everly comes from.
I would guess French comics. Because I think the only comparison I can make would be a Mobius or something. Yeah. Someone with a very fine line.
I don't think she's American. No. So she might be European or something.
Yeah.
Really interesting stuff. I just don't have a lot to say about it, mostly because of what Chris is probably saying is that it's early and
it's finding itself.
There's a lot of mystery around not only the comic but around the characters in the comic and who these people are and where it's going and stuff like that. So it's a little difficult to review. But we don't need to keep talking about that because that's an honorable mention.
Yeah.
I have this one that Chris is not reading. It's called Quick Stops. It's just a lot of fun. Why I like this title is it's really well written. Kevin Smith knows how to do characters, and even better, his own characters really well. And this is just an in the Viewers universe comic book about some of the things that maybe he thought weren't good enough to make a movie. And it's about Mooby the cow and its creation and stuff like that. It's just a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun. And it ties into a lot of the movies, and that's really rewarding in and of itself. And you get some some background on these characters that you might love if you're a Kevin Smith fan. And so if you're a Kevin Smith fan, this is totally worth picking up. If you're not a Kevin Smith fan, this is not worth picking up. You're going to be so lost.
He's a great dialoguist, though.
Yeah.
I think that's one of his greatest strengths.
And I'm like even further than that. He knows like what a beginning, middle, and end looks like. You know, the man can build a climax, resolve. You know, have his falling resolution and come to a close. And the guy has been working in film for so much that he's bringing that to comics, which means that he's got interesting perspectives that he can give to the artist to draw and stuff of that nature.
And a wide career in comics, too. I know for sure.
Yeah. He's
definitely had to tone himself down over the years.
Yeah, dude loves
writing.
Loves writing and loves comics, so he's definitely fit for it. Next we have Hellblazer, which Chris is also reading, but didn't get around to this week. I didn't really get around to this either. I was going to lie and tell you guys I did. I didn't.
Yeah.
I hope this isn't that great, because maybe it should be on the show. All I can say is the reason why we haven't reviewed this so far is not because Chris hasn't caught up on it or anything, but because this is really good. There's nothing wrong with this. Could totally be on the show. I just don't know what to say about it other than it's super entertaining. Aaron Campbell is killing it. He's the artist on the book. He is incredible, this man. And it's a Hellblazer book, so there's comedy in it, there's drama, there's horror, there's everything you would expect from a John Constantine title. He's walking around America trying to resolve something. I don't remember what the main story is, but it's not because it's bad. It's because it's so normal. It's what I would expect from a Hellblazer comic. Whereas if a Hellblazer comic isn't at least this good, it wouldn't even get an honorable mention, because there's a very easy way to fuck up a Hellblazer comic. Yeah. This is John Constantine and Swamp Thing are such niche characters that you kind of have to write them a certain way, or else it just doesn't work. Swamp Thing is naturally a horror character, so you can't really take Swamp Thing and throw him in Metropolis and have him save a bunch of kids and have this great story. No, it's got to be a story where something's dying and he's got to prevent it from dying by sacrificing his left arm or something crazy like that, or John Constantine has to screw over somebody else in order to save the world, or if you see these characters in superhero comics, they're never the main characters. They're side characters.
They're very insular.
Because that's the only way you can really use them properly within the confines of the DC universe. If you don't want to do that, then you're stuck doing Hellblazer comics, or you're stuck doing horror Swamp Thing comics, which is a fine place for those characters to be anyway. It's where they come from, and that's what makes them good. So that's exactly what makes this comic good, is this guy, Simon Spurrier, is doing an incredible job writing it, and then thusly only further incredible, like Helen of Windhorn with Bill Everly. Aaron Campbell is turning it way up. So this is really solid. It probably should be on this show. We just didn't get around to it. So read Hellblazer if you're at all interested in a horror comedy comic, because that's exactly what it is, and it really does a good job of exactly that. Plus, all these characters that Cy Spurrier is writing are really... There's a mute kid that might be John's son. There's a Glaswegian woman bouncer from a bar that he has taken to use as a bodyguard across America, and a bunch of random appearances from some of John Constantine's rogues gallery, I guess you could call it. He doesn't have a rogues gallery, he is a rogue. So read it, it's good. It's $5, it's totally worth the $5. And then last on our honorable mentions is Wonder Woman number 8, which is another title me and Chris didn't really get around to this week. We read right before the show started, because we're not going to do a weekly Wednesday Warrior without reading Wonder Woman.
Yeah, it would be ignorant of us.
Blasphemy.
Yeah.
Blasphemy, tying into what happened in the book there. It's mostly Tom King talking about some of the things that the Bible puts on women.
Yeah.
Through the dialogue of the Sovereign talking to Wonder Woman, who's in the lasso of lies. And that's pretty much the summary of the whole story, actually.
I think,
go ahead.
Even a little further beyond that, it's a thinly veiled criticism of the good old days, a lot of 50s nostalgia, a lot of your grandparents' beliefs in women and stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff comes from
religion, yeah, and it's all tied together.
Yeah, it's got like a nice and neat wrapped little bow on this, where as like a lot of the Wonder Woman issues that we've talked about, it's not neat or wrapped at all. It's like all over the place. It's like Tom King's tackling so many damn things at once and providing so many perspectives. This is similar to his Commandi issue. This is Wonder Woman in a room.
Yes.
There's no adventure. There's no excitement. This is what's going on. We need to tell this real quick so that you understand, you know, maybe one of the driving forces that's pushing Diana over the edge in this situation, and where the Sovereign is coming from, and what he represents even further. And just they're really selling these 2 points in this issue and just not doing a whole heck of a lot else. There's even like, I'd say this, I'm not even sure why this is here, maybe upon my second read I'll understand, but like the moments between the other Amazons,
yeah,
it kind of just like feels shoved in there out of nowhere.
Right, he like, the story's coming to a conclusion, at least this current one it feels like. I feel like he's just setting up something happens later.
Ooh, that being said, man, you're probably right. I hope that Tom King has like a huge ongoing story for one. I hope he wraps up this Sovereign
thing.
thing.
Very conclusive.
I hope he like wraps up this Sovereign thing and then has like so much more to say, because I'm gonna be so sad if this gets to like issue 12 or 14 and like he calls it a day or whatever it is.
It could be very possible though he's setting up for like a City of Bane style thing where he sets up Bane very early on in that Batman run to bring him back by the end.
Yeah, I feel so effing bad for Tom King's run on Batman. It's like I feel like
in retrospect it just gets better and better as the years go on. I feel like
it's so good, and the reason why I feel bad for it is like he should have like opened with this, right? He should have got to DC, did Sheriff of Babylon, and then them hand him like Wonder Woman or something.
Yeah.
Because if he had done this first and like turned Wonder Woman into a whole new respected character through the use of comic books, and then did this run on Batman, people would be praising him like crazy for this run on Batman, just because of how like almost 70 issues.
It was 86.
You know, and this dude is I think it's actually less than that. There's a couple of annuals, but I'm not counting the Batman Catwoman Black Label story that happened afterward.
Right, it's like 86 issues.
And also the Monster Men issues and the Joshua Williamson issues.
Okay.
So there's like 3 or 4 of those Monster Men issues, and then like 1 or 2 of those Joshua Williamson issues.
There's 4 of those.
Just somewhere between 70 and 86. I don't know where you're. Because he only wrote
you're right.
issue 70 something.
Yeah, he wrote 27 and then. Oh no, you're not talking about Joshua Williamson.
No. Tom King only wrote 2 like actual like 70 something, and then he got cut from it. They gave it to Tinian. But anyway, we're going off on tangents here. Wonder Woman's solid, and Tom King is solid, and the book was really solid. And if we had time on the show, which is why we saved this one for the last honorable mention, this is where it would go. It would be the book that we reviewed right before Nightwing. But we're going to move on here to the book that we're actually reviewing, which is
Nightwing 300.
Nightwing 113. Them pulling a legacy number out of their ass. DC never does that. Excuse me. But Nightwing 300. I'm both. I don't want to say surprised, but I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't. Shouldn't there be more Nightwing comics? You know,
I feel like there shouldn't be, just because like he is more continuous than like a Moon Knight, but I feel like they have very similar trajectories.
Isn't that weird though? That like half this legacy numbering here, 300, almost half of that number is recent comics.
Yeah.
And then a good other half of it is one really famous run on Nightwing
by Chuck Dixon. Yeah.
It was by a lot of people.
All right,
It was all over the place. Chuck Dixon writing most of it.
Right,
shit,
but you gotta remember the Nightwing book didn't start till at least 90 something.
It was mid 90s, and it went through the 2000s and stuff. It took
but there was probably a couple breaks when he became Batman. That probably took a substantial couple year break.
They just canceled the shit.
Yeah.
But Nightwing just got canceled in like the early 2000s or so.
Okay.
And then they did a couple things. That's where like some of these numbers added up a little bit for your issue.
I wonder if Grayson is part of this too. I don't know.
I don't think so. I would also think that Nightwing New Order probably isn't part of that count. I really do think they're probably counting a couple of miniseries that are just called Nightwing and stuff like that.
I know they do that for like Spider-Man and stuff, where there's like 800 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, but there kind of isn't. So that's like Superior Spider-Man, they're counting it because it kind of is Amazing Spider-Man.
I don't know if that's a good suggestion, because Superior Spider-Man has its own legacy count now.
Really?
Yeah, but Amazing Spider-Man, that being said, Amazing Spider-Man probably did actually hit 800, because you got to think about all those decimal issues that Dan Slott was doing when he was doing his original run, and then Spencer came on and did a bunch of decimal issues. I don't even think they actually count those decimal issues towards that legacy number.
I don't know.
So if they... No, I know. I shouldn't say I don't think... They don't have legacy numbering for the decimal issues, which means that they could if they wanted to, which means that they probably have enough in like normal Amazing Spider-Man to just call it whatever number it's at in space. But in any case, we have Nightwing, number 300, number 113, whatever number you feel like calling to it. And the story is relatively simple. I feel bad. I haven't asked you to do a summary in a while. I don't know. My memory's been like good since I came back from Japan. Power Card Games, comics fans. But we have Nightwing, and he's out there. He's stopping like a gun run with his siblings, his Bat fam, minus Batman. And after he's done doing that, he's like, I gotta go and meet up with Babs so that she can get some sleep. So he goes home to be Oracle for like a Teen Titans mission, basically. We don't see the mission at all, but we just see Babs wake up, and she's like, why didn't you wake me up? I could have did this job, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, well, it's my day. I get to do whatever I want, and I wanted you to sleep for 8 hours, so get got. And she's like, oh, all right, it's your day. And then she wishes him a happy birthday. He's like, I'll be back. I got to go off and do something. He's a little vague about what he's going to go and do. But he goes to the keep. He finds the keep, and he's going to the keep because the guns that he had stopped from going into town earlier, there was like a note or a clue somewhere that
the guns came into Gotham, but the guy he interrogated told him they were supposed to be in Bloodhaven, and someone is preventing them from getting in the harbor.
Right, thank you. And so he thinks he knows who's stopping the guns from coming into town, and he thinks it's the woman who used to date the Dan Jurgens. Yes, thank you. And the Dan Jurgens run on this same book. And so he goes to talk to Bia in the keep. It's on this like ship outside of Bloodhaven that he finds, a secret ship, and he very appropriately uses his super sleuth powers to get in without it being noticed. And she makes a comment on that. And she's like, yeah, we've been stopping guns, which is a great thing, and he's not mad about it. He's just trying to like verify that information. And then she gives him a tip. Even though I don't think Tom King actually did this properly, this would be one of my only complaints in this book. The interaction between Dick and Bea it's really short, and there's nothing really said between the two of them. There's like a little joke even, but there's not really information exchange.
Right.
But we're led to, like, in between the panels, assume that he had a reason for going to talk to her. He gets this information on a location that she had gotten through beating up the people that were bringing the guns into Gotham or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he goes to this location, and it's Heartless's base of operations, or one of them. And he walks in, and there's just a bunch of, like, cameras everywhere, and it's a big empty warehouse room, basically. And he gets the feeling that he's being watched. He sees all the cameras, and he goes, all right, Heartless, I'm gonna get you, He says, I have like an accurate note of what he actually says. It's something. Nightwing sneaks up, blah blah blah. He tells Heartless is like he's like not afraid of Heartless. He's like, I don't care if you've got an army of people. I have an army too. The only reason I like that is it switches to Heartless's perspective. So you see Dick Grayson on a CCTV. Yeah. And there's like 30 of these CCTVs in front of Heartless, and they're all saying the exact same thing. So there's like an army of Dick Graysons in front of Heartless saying that I have an army too.
Oh yeah, it's a really good visual.
Very, very, very well done.
We haven't complimented Daniela Di Niccolo.
I'm gonna finish the summary, and then we're gonna go and do all the praising and fun stuff. So he then goes to this celebration that he's been invited to, and we're not sure what the celebration is, but we can see all of the Bat fam with him, except for Bruce again. But Bruce is there. He's just in the audience.
Yeah, with Jim.
Getting there.
Yeah.
And Barbara is there, all dressed nice and stuff, and so they go in, and it's his birthday, and so they all have to like act accordingly to whatever he wants, and all he wants is for everybody to feel good. And so he's about to be given the key to the city from his sister, who's the mayor. And he pulls a fast one on Barbara and makes it so that the key is being given to him and Barbara because they're the founders and owners and the people doing the good work for the Pennyworth Foundation and stuff. And Barbara's surprised, and she's a little mad that she wasn't told ahead of time. And there's like this analogy that's going on since the beginning of the book about how Nightwing doesn't love the spotlight. He just operates well in the spotlight. Yeah. And so one of his favorite things to do is to share the spotlight because he doesn't actually love it. He would rather see somebody that deserves it be in the spotlight than himself. It's another comment on how Nightwing is just always thinking about other people, not just himself. And so Barbara, is melting on stage, and they have a great time. And they get the key to Bloodhaven and all that good stuff. And there's some really good talk from the mayor, too, about like how cities used to be walled up and keys to the city would actually be real keys to unlock the gates and stuff like that. Cut to, he takes everybody there out for pizza. He invites the whole dang room of people watching, the audience, Bruce and Gordon and all the people watching the city, the ceremony. And he invites a bunch of his friends and Titans and stuff. It's like a whole big birthday celebration / Bloodhaven celebration / just everything. Get everybody together. And they show up to he says, the best restaurant in town. It's not a restaurant at all. It's a pizza place.
Yeah.
Specifically pizza. I don't think they sell anything else there. Or at least that's what I was getting from it.
Right.
And the place is called Marv and George's. George and Marv's? Marv's and George's?
Marv and George's.
Something like that. It's a direct homage to Marv Wolfman and George Perez, who created Nightwing, and more specifically, the guise of Nightwing, because Dick Grayson was a character long before they ever got their hands on him. But there he is, and he's enjoying pizza and stuff, and so he goes in to talk to the owners and apologize for the short notice of 1,000 people showing up to their restaurant. And the owner, Marv, is just like, oh no, it's no big deal. You're like the greatest person on earth. We love you. We'd do anything for you. We're so proud of you. And there's this really nice picture of George Perez in the background.
Yeah.
Even though it's not George Perez necessarily. And so it's really just really nice, the words that are being said to Dick. And these words were written by Marv Wolfman himself, we're led to believe through the credits and stuff like that. And they brought on Bruno Redondo to do this scene and this scene only also. And it's really well done because Bruno Redondo, although he's an amazing cartoonist, does have the ability to really over-render a realistic impression face.
Yeah.
And so he does a really good job of capturing what Marv looks like and what George Perez looks. I'd even say he made Marv look better than he does now.
I was going to say it's a little flatter.
Marv's a little old these days, but he got the white beard and stuff, so he's just trying to make him look better, I think.
Yeah. It's also a very idyllic style, so just even putting Marv Wolfman in that lens, he's going to come out looking a little better.
Yeah, so I feel like that's the end of the story. No, it cuts to Heartless at right after that.
And he says some corny villain stuff now that Dick Grayson's made it to the top, we're going to make sure he falls lower than he's ever been.
We're going to get him!
Yeah.
We're going to get him! I don't think they really do anything that important. The big thing here is definitely that they're still doing this Heartless thing that's been going on forever in this story.
Yeah.
And I would say it's getting a little tiring on me. I think Chris is feeling the same way. But what else are you gonna do? It's your big villain. So you
kind of have to.
You're gonna keep doing that thing. It's only a small beat in this story. It kind of opens up with Heartless stuff, closes with Heartless stuff. So it's very fitting. The middle part's a little bit about Heartless, but all the meat in between all that is all about Dick Grayson and what Dick Grayson would do on his birthday, which is just to share it with everyone he loves and makes them feel better than they can possibly make him feel on his own.
Also giving him the best day possible before we set up for the fall of Dick Grayson, which is what we've been leading up to, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'll give Tom Taylor credit for how he writes the story, as opposed to what Tom King did. I'm not saying either is better than the other.
Yeah.
But Tom King does a good job at infusing action into a very similar,
it felt natural.
very similarly talkative issue. They're both very There's a lot of dialogue. They
Yeah.
both have some ideas and themes they want to get across.
Yeah.
I think Tom Taylor a little less than Tom King.
Yeah.
But Tom Taylor does a better job of infusing action into the story. I feel like that is something that's important in comics, especially when you're working collaboratively with an artist. That's the kind of things that artists want to flex, and the kind of things that helps them get recognized and stuff, is good action beats on top of good storytelling with like people and stuff.
Yeah, one of my complaints in when I'm watching television is that a lot of television is just people talking in a room.
Yeah.
They cut from two people talking to a room to another two people talking to a room to another two people talking in a room. And although my summary of this was, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, that was exactly how this book went. But it didn't feel like you were just being dragged along in the story. It was something that you were excited to see what was going to happen next. And when you turn the page to see Marv and George's pizza place or whatever, if you're a Nightwing fan, you're immediately like you're sedated, like immediately.
Yeah.
Like this is gonna be great. What are they gonna do here? I'm so excited to see it. And then you turn another page and it goes from Daniel Di Nicuolo's art to Bruno Redondo's art, and you're like, ooh, this just hit really nice.
Yeah.
And then you get this Marv Wolfman heart to heart with Dick Grayson, as if like
he's just telling him how proud he is of his own creation.
Yeah, and how much, like, since Marv has taught it, how much he's managed to do as a fictional character for the people that are reading and the people within the actual fictional story and stuff like that. So, these guys, they put together an issue of Nightwing that felt like maybe one of the perfect ways of celebrating an anniversary for a character. They managed to do it in like 25 pages or less, too. It didn't get too crazy. They didn't bother to tack a $10 tag on this. It's a normal fee for the comic book and stuff. And you still got a little extra, with that Marv Wolfman stuff.
Yeah, and then there's a backup in there. It's very inconsequential, but the art was very good.
Oh, yes. I forgot all about the backup. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was. The art was good, and the writing was good, too. The only thing I'd say is it's done like the show 64 or whatever. There's a show, I think it's like about Jack Bauer. Whatever show that is, it's about Jack Bauer. It's like 60 seconds or something. It's every one of these shows happens in a certain amount of time, right? And so in this issue, he has 4 minutes to stop a bomb on a train.
Yes.
And honestly, with the panels that they show us, it only seems like about 30 seconds.
Right.
Like, it seems like Dick Gray, if it took him 4 minutes to do this, if this is a subway train in Bloodhaven, it doesn't take 4 minutes for a subway train to get from one stop to another stop. It takes maybe about 2.5 minutes usually, especially if it's an express train. Right. So I just couldn't believe the 4 minute thing, but that's just not. It's just not worth. It was a solid backup. It was better than the backup that was in the last issue. And the last issue was drawn by Francesco Francavilla.
That's true.
So it's saying a lot. I don't need to say anything more after that, at least about the backup.
I will say Howard Porter brought a real sense of motion to the art. I was really impressed by the way the story moved.
Yeah,
it was really good.
I dig Howard Porter's art for the most part. So to my notes to finish this up, because we do need to do that.
Yep.
Nightwing's wearing a slap Batman shirt.
Yeah,
when he's talking to
but
Barbara
it's like him, right?
It's actual Nightwing. It's not Robin. It's Nightwing's. It's Dick wearing a Dick slap Batman shirt. It's hilarious.
Yes,
definitely a call from Daniel Di Nicuolo. I don't think Tom Taylor told him to do that. Di Nicuolo has been one of the fill-in artists on this run, so it's pretty appropriate that he was brought on to do this story.
He even got to bring back a Nightbite for a little bit, or
yes.
Nightmite.
Yes, he did. He did. And one of my other notes is Nightwing is awesome. And that page that he did where he brought that character back for just a panel is a page that also ties in a whole bunch of other comics that are happening in DC right now with this run. Which, again, seamless, right? Like, how much stuff has Tom Taylor managed to fit into this comic, right? Like, these tie-ins, these homages, these bringing back of things that he did in his own run. He made a joke on that Batman slap thing, like issues.
It was like the first couple.
So there's like so many things that are being brought back in this issue, really well utilized.
And I think not only that, he does it without feeling as a new reader that you'd be lost. Like, I've been reading New X-Men by Grant Morrison, and one of my frequent complaints is I feel like I'm losing something by not having read the other X-Men titles at the time. I don't think I would feel that reading Nightwing.
Yeah.
I think Tom Taylor does a really good job of incorporating the other titles in a way where you're like, here's the wider DC universe at this time, but I'm not confused as I'm like, oh, am I missing something?
No. Yeah, he's the man's a master of his craft. I know we've said that before, but it's hard not to acknowledge that over and over again.
Yeah.
So much so, like, sometimes it feels some things you go and homage somebody the way that he did did it in this issue. If he did something a little bit different, it might have felt a little forced or like corny or cliche, because the stuff kind of happens a lot these days. We got a lot of fans writing comics these days.
Right.
Everybody wants to throw in like people's names into their comics when they can, just to show their appreciation for the people that came before them. This is a really big version of that.
Right.
And he still nailed it. It reminded me of that time where Donny Cates got Bendis to write the Powers people for
crossover.
For crossover, like he called up Bendis and was like, "Bendis, I need 3 pages from you. Can you do it?"
Right.
And Bendis was happy to help out.
Were they interrogating Bendis in that issue?
I think they were.
Yeah.
I think they were. Which is great. It's
and there's the Chip Zdarsky issue too, where he brought Chip in to do a story.
Yeah,
about Chip Zdarsky.
That's a whole issue though. So I wasn't going to make the comparison there. But, like, Tom Taylor reached out to Marv and DC and was like, "Hey, DC, will you pay Marv Wolfman to do 2 pages? Also, Marv, are you willing to write 2 pages under this directive? Like, this is what I need you to do."
He references all the Nightwing stuff. He's not just talking about vaguely about the character. He's talking about the events of Tom Taylor's
run. So now I'm under the impression maybe even Marv went and, read some of this.
It feels very congratulatory for Tom Taylor. And I don't think he forced it. I'm not saying he's, up his own butt or anything,
Yeah.
I feel like but it just must have been very gratifying, I feel like, to read that.
Yeah. And so my last note is Bruno Redondo and Tom Taylor, Wolfman and Perez.
Yep.
These are guys that really know this character now. And
Hall of Famers.
These are going to be the guys that you're going to talk about their run. I don't hear people talking about Chuck Dixon. I hear people talking about Wolfman and Perez.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be talking about Taylor and Redondo for forever. So, it's cool to be alive to get to see this happen. I guess is my final note. You got anything to leave off on here, Chris?
Yeah, really little thing. Did you see the 7 Secrets guys in the Marvin George's pizza place?
No!
They're there, and the guy from Jujutsu Kaisen's there, Yuji Itadori.
I wouldn't even notice the Jujutsu. You know what's funny is in that scene, I was looking at it like, these dudes look so familiar. Why do they look so familiar?
And then there's
yes. There is some of the... That's so cool. I really like Daniel Di Nicuolo. I think he brings such a weird and interesting thing to his comics that other people aren't brave enough to do.
Yeah, they're very expressive.
His lines are so loose.
Yeah.
And almost messy. Not messy. But
it's like controls chaos. Messy. Almost.
Yeah.
That's almost not right.
It's not. It's just jarring in the best way.
Mm-hmm.
I really dig his stuff. And I've heard people don't like his stuff that much, so it is definitely an acquired taste, I suppose, Daniel Di Nicuolo.
Yeah.
But we got to move on. Keep the show rolling. We got Ultimate Black Panther #3, the first Ultimate title to make it onto the show. The first Black Panther comic to make it onto the show. The first Brian Hill comic to make it onto the show, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
we talked about Blade in honorable mentions.
How many firsts is this hitting? That's a lot of firsts.
And it's the last comic.
They must have did something good in this issue, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so let me summarize this, because this one should take me pretty quick. I should be able to do this. Opens up. Shuri and Okoye are having a disagreement. They decide to fight each other about the disagreement. Shuri wins. Okoye shuts up. We cut to Black Panther, who is in the woods. He is chilling with Killmonger. Little jarring at first, to be honest. And you're like, why is this happening? And then you realize that Killmonger is on the same side as Storm. Storm had approached Black Panther in the prior issue.
Not only that, we have context for Killmonger from having read other Black Panther stories. We know nothing about this guy. This is a whole new universe.
He did show up in one of the other 2 issues.
Yeah,
as well.
and he showed up in a heroic role. He saved some people when Black Panther wasn't.
So it wasn't. It was a little jarring at first, and that's why I say only at first. So you keep reading, and then you realize that Brian Hill's just trying to keep this moving. He doesn't want to have to spend time on showing how T'Challa and Killmonger meet up. How many times have we done that in comics? We don't need to do it again. Move on, right? So now T'Challa is trying to do research in Africa, trying to figure out what the hell is going on around Wakanda, mostly with Ra and Khonshu and their people, their army, their stuff. And Killmonger seems to know something that T'Challa doesn't. And so Killmonger and Aurora, Storm, they go down this like crazy mystic cave thing, and they get to the bottom, and there's a bunch of vibranium that Khonshu and Ra wants, but not even just that. They go further into this cave thing, and there's like a rock of mystery here.
It's like a green orb almost,
some
right?
weird like you can't even really tell. And the comic ends on this splash page of this big green rock orb thing. Okay, so T'Challa is trying to figure out what's going on around Wakanda. Shuri is trying to keep everything under control while appeasing her queen. The queen, Okoye, is trying to make sure her people are doing okay while being kept in the dark.
Right.
There's just a lot of moving pieces in this thing, and the story is actually relatively short, although they packed so much into this goddamn story in such few short pages and stuff. I have a page of notes here, whole page, so I'm just going to start doing this.
All right.
You got Brian Hill killing it, Stefano Caselli. I don't know his stuff. You know his stuff?
I think... You know what? The only thing I read from him was the Ultimate Universe sequel to Ultimate Fallout. He did one with Hickman, and it was really good looking. I believe it was Caselli. It was so nice after the Brian Hitch stuff. He was doing a great job.
I don't know where this guy came from, but the stuff is it's really good. It's like Tom King could do a story with this guy tomorrow, and it would be phenomenal because this guy's the kind of guy who knows how to utilize his panels to show the different things that the writer is trying to showcase within the writing and stuff.
His art style gives me a lot of, I don't think you'd have any frame for this guy, but R.B. Sylvia vibes.
Yeah.
He did a bunch of the Powers of 10 stuff. Yeah. And Valeria Shitty he's very similar too.
Lemuel Francis, you a little bit too. It's like, to me, there's like a whole class of these guys.
I wouldn't include Linnell Yu, even though they are similar, because I get a real digital feel from all three of the guys I mentioned. They have a very digital style to me. Whereas Linnell Yu is he's very traditional.
I didn't know that. I thought that he would be another digital guy because he's got really thin lines.
No, yeah.
And when I see
his pencils are crazy.
They're
like pretty real. They're almost like Alex Ross pencils. They're nuts.
They're just, it looks like a digital line, but somehow this guy's doing it naturally, which is
he's very impressive.
So Shuri has this thing where she's talking to Okoye and she's trying to tell them. I just have a note that says "build to destroy." It's because she's fighting this machine that she had built, and she wants to get better, and so she has to build something to fight against in order for her to get better, and so it kind of gives already this personality trait that she's willing to destroy something in order to get better, which is a weird thing to put to a character right now because most of the theme in this story is trust. Right. And there's a spy in Wakanda and we don't know who they are. And if Shuri is willing to destroy something to get better, that's a trait that a spy would have or somebody who's willing to take down the Empire has, right? And then she immediately fights the Queen directly after that. Right. Giving her further personality traits on taking down the leadership here and doing her own thing.
You know, I think that is a theme I think that's shared by T'Challa too a little bit, especially in issue 1 before so I think we should summarize the book just a tiny bit to give our readers context.
If we have
There's been an assassination of someone in Wakanda because there's this outside force run by Ra and Khonshu that have taken over Africa. Now they want to get into Wakanda. So they are sending people in. They've already killed one of the past kings, so everyone's a little paranoid. We're doing that kind of thing. But before that, T'Challa is kind of like, he's going against one of these traditional leadership roles. I forget what they're called, but they're these like sages or these future tellers that are in Wakanda that share prophecies. Yeah. And that whole first issue, T'Challa is like talking to his dad. He's like, I want to get these guys out of here. I don't think they're good for Wakanda.
No, I think kind of that he just doesn't want to take their advice.
Right. But he definitely says something like, I want to dismantle their thing.
Well, if he does, he doesn't. He doesn't act upon
No,
those
because
thoughts.
he's like...
His father quells his fears, and then his father dies, and so now he has this probably motive within himself to do whatever his father probably thought was best, and so that kind of solidifies these fortune tellers as part of the story going forward. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right on some extent. I don't think that's at all relevant to what we're talking. Well, obviously it's relevant. It's the 2 issues prior. Yeah. But my point is, the reason why this is so good, this comic specifically, this issue 3 is so good, is not because of the 2 issues that came before. It's because of all of the things that this issue is doing in and of itself. Shuri, in the beginning of that, by going back to what I was saying, is she removes the safety protocols on the thing that she's fighting.
Yeah.
Which is another moment of giving her a personality trait that she is willing to take down whatever barriers that might be keeping her safe, just in an effort for her to get better. Shuri is so willing to take risks, up to and including fighting her own queen to prove a point, which is what she does immediately. And Okoye is constantly questioning her about not only T'Challa, which the queen wants to know where her husband is.
Yeah, but like time skips. It's been a couple days.
But like further about like Shuri's motives and what she's doing, and she says something like, you can keep Wakanda in the dark, but do not spread that shadow over me. It's a really powerful statement. And they fight about it and stuff, and Shuri wins. And one of the reasons they're fighting is Shuri also refuses to acknowledge her as queen. Not in a rude way. She just opts out of saying Queen Okoye and just calls her Okoye.
Right.
Okoye has to correct her on this, and then she sarcastically says, "Well, do you want me to bow to you, or do you really want me to call you Queen or whatever?" And so they start fighting and stuff. But I thought that keep Wakanda in the dark but not spread that shadow over me was really strong. Mostly because as soon as they're done fighting and Shuri wins and does her thing, there's a tree that they're hanging out underneath, and the shadow from the tree is over both of them.
Yeah.
Which tells me that in the writing and in the script and in the art that this is just the way. This is just what's going to. Where am I going with this? Both of these people don't know what's going on. Shuri has no idea. She's just not telling Okoye that she doesn't know what's going on. Okoye has no idea what's going on. T'Challa has not contacted any of his people in probably a week or a month or whatever it is. How long it's ever taken him to find Storm, to find Killmonger, to go and get trapped in this cave thing that he's in.
Yeah.
Tribe rules. The Themyscira. There's a lot of parallels that you can make to Themyscira and Wakanda. And I find it interesting that in both Wonder Woman and Black Panther, the writers are utilizing those traits. They are trying to bring this into the future and bring it present and keep it concurrent, but also remind you that these cultures are based in tribalism. And there are things that are here for a reason, and this is the way that it works. And the reason that these things are here is to further the Brian Hill or Tom King's storytelling ability and utilizing the characters and where they come from and what they're about and stuff like that. So it only furthers the theme of what Black Panther is all about, and that's being natural and using the earth and being true to your tribe and your family and where you come from.
Right.
And so they do this ritualistic, woman fight woman thing to decide who is going to break their will and give up their questioning, and again, Shuri wins. Kings and Conquerors. Don't know why I have that written down.
Maybe just talking about T'Challa and Killmonger.
Yeah, you're probably right, but maybe it'll come back to me. I thought the art was really strong and natural, which I thought was really fitting of a Black Panther comic. It didn't feel super techy, which I've seen them try to do with Black Panther, or it didn't feel all woods and trees, which is another thing I've seen with that kind of stuff. This whole thing kind of reminds me of a spy intrigue war thriller.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen next because there is no basis. There's no war started yet. T'Challa is a spy in and of himself. Everybody else is kind of kept in the dark at this point. There's just a whole lot of questions and a whole lot of potential to happen in the next however many issues, and even more so potential because this is an Ultimate book. Eventually, this is going to have to tie into the other Ultimate titles.
Yeah. Which
will build an even bigger story that this is kind of dancing around constantly, because they have mentioned the Maker at least once or twice.
Yes, and specifically with the Raw people, they're very tied into that whole thing, whatever they were doing.
So in parallels here, you got Shuri and Okoye, you have Killmonger and T'Challa. Yeah. And they're kind of doing the same thing. Shuri and Okoye are kind of pulling their own perspectives out of each other so that the reader could understand who these people are and where they're coming from 3 issues in. You want to set some standards for your characters and stuff. Yeah. Because it's the exact same thing for Killmonger and T'Challa. They're having this conversation and it feels like a chess match. It's T'Challa's well, I'm paraphrasing here, but Killmonger's we got to do more for the world around us. There are people that look like us that aren't being helped, and you're just in your little village, just like doing nothing. And T'Challa's like, well, I understand where you're coming from, but you can't just go and do things like that without some sort of like plan or action. Like, I'm willing to hear you out, but we can't just go and save the world overnight and stuff. And Killmonger's like, well, you have no idea what the world even looks like, so of course you're going to say something like that. And just back and forth with that kind of thing. And Killmonger Killmonger's like prodding like T'Challa, like trying to see how far he can poke the Panther, before the Panther jumps on him. And T'Challa keeps a pretty level head the entire conversation. But in the same way, he's also trying to open T'Challa's eyes. And Killmonger actually acts as a Sherpa, bringing him into this cave, and furthermore as a Sherpa into the world around Wakanda. So Killmonger has like this like guide role already in the book, which is really important because T'Challa really doesn't know what the hell is going on around him. He's been very well housed within Wakanda for his whole life from what we've gathered in the story so far. So for Killmonger to be the person to show him the stuff is probably proper. What better perspective does T'Challa need than a Wakanda-born, world-traveled person to show him exactly what the hell is going on, you know?
Right.
And there's, again, we're going to go back to this trust thing. I don't think Killmonger trusts T'Challa. I don't think T'Challa trusts Killmonger. I don't think anybody trusts anybody. But everybody's trying to like dance around that because they need the help of everybody else to solve what's going on. The army of Khonshu and Ra is going to destroy Wakanda if Wakanda can't figure out a plan to prevent all this stuff from happening. And so T'Challa needs people like Killmonger and Aurora and the sages and his army and the Dora Milaje and all of these people. They become immediately like necessary to the story. There's some interesting figures outside of the cave temple that they go into. One of the ones that I have noticed is there's one that looks like Kang.
Yes, yeah. That's what I immediately thought too.
Sure, I'm pulling that page up right now. It's Kang. They don't do that shit by mistake. So, Kang in a Black Panther comic?
You know what though?
Boy!
I will
Woo!
say,
Let's go.
more than usual, this book is dealing with the outside African world.
Yeah.
There's some precedent for Kang being like an Egyptian ruler and stuff.
Sure.
I think that's where they were really going with it.
Yeah, maybe even goes as far as to try to conquer Wakanda at a point.
But there's like, okay, doesn't matter. There's like totally a Kang in one of the books, in the Ultimate books we read, and I don't know if that like matters.
I mean, it'll probably play eventually, you know? These guys they're definitely all talking to each other a little bit because it's supposed to all come together at some point or another. So, connection. Aurora says two things that are really smart. She says, connection isn't a skill, it's a responsibility.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, like, T'Challa's connections to not only Wakanda, but the people around him and the things that he needs to do. And that's like a kind of a summary for the story so far, is that T'Challa has been left all of these responsibilities from his father and from Wakanda, and that it's his choice to do whatever needs to be done, and he needs to figure out the right way to do that. And the only way to do that is to acknowledge the responsibility that he has and not just look at it as a skill to use these people around him.
I'd also say maybe he's trying to say T'Challa's maybe disconnected from his people, and especially from the outside world.
Yeah.
And he has this great responsibility or whatever to do something about it, which is what Killmonger is kind of telling him as well.
Yeah. And one of the last things that Storm says to him is, it's time to unlearn, son of Wakanda.
Yeah.
Because what he knows is only a fraction of what he needs to know in order to properly combat the storm that's coming at him.
And there's a great visual that goes along with this, where when T'Challa enters the cave, for whatever reason, we'll find out later probably, the Black Panther suit doesn't listen to him anymore, so he has to turn it off. So Black Panther is this huge symbol of Wakandan heritage. He has to put that away so he can learn something different.
That's a good takeaway. Also, they mentioned that, T'Challa says, like, my gods, and then Killmonger says, your gods aren't here to listen to you, don't bother. Right. So there's some weird, freaky, crazy stuff gonna happen. We barely even did any Ra or Khonshu stuff in this issue, and that's been the whole past two issues. Brian Hill is, like, building this huge story around T'Challa that I feel like we've deserved for years.
Right.
And, like, I really hope he doesn't drop the ball on this, because this is such a really big, dope, rolling concrete cement ball. And I'm really excited to see where all these characters go, who the spies in Wakanda are, what their like hidden intentions are, where Storm, the sage priestess who's telling the future, says that Storm's going to raise one of T'Challa's kids, is going to bring him a son. We have to see the fall of Okoye happen eventually, and her descent from being queen to being somebody else, or maybe staying queen and then T'Challa cheating on this woman, which is going to break what Aurora said about connection being a skill or responsibility. He's just going to toss that out the window to have a son or something. That doesn't seem like T'Challa. There's so much set up in just this one damn issue that I came out of this comic book going like, this is it. This is our whole weekly Wednesday Warrior right here. And Brian Hill has been one of those guys that like, his stuff is not always that consistent. And so he built this incredible story, giving so much depth to all of his characters and putting so many things in motion and making things so interesting. And meanwhile, entertaining me and like, I picked up this issue reading it, was like, oh, this is going to be another 5-minute, 10-minute read. You know, Tom Taylor books are kind of fast, and Brian Hill kind of writes really similar to Tom Taylor sometimes. You know, really just like letting their artists do all the heavy lifting, basically. And so I expected the artist to do all the heavy lifting, which he did. Yeah. But also, just as well, Brian Hill was there, like, posing in the back, doing the same heavy lifting for, like, you know, just to make sure that he's living up to the same capabilities his artist is. And, like, props even to the colorist. I think his name is Dave Curiel. Like,
he's very good.
Even the colors in here look really strong. So, this Black Panther book was better than Wonder Woman. Was better than the Nightwing comic. We've been reviewing Nightwing and Wonder Woman comics for, like, a year. And Black Panther just beat them. So, you got any notes?
Anything further? No. I think you touched on everything.
All right. Why should you buy these comics? You buy Helen Windhorn because it's the best indie book this week. It's got a whole lot of stuff, and it's got promise for later. Why should you buy Quick Stops? It's Kevin Smith's book. You're a Kevin Smith fan. You are missing out if you don't have this book. Why should you buy Hellblazer? Basically the same reason as Kevin Smith. If you're a Hellblazer fan, this is probably the best book on the wall. It's doing exactly what you want out of Hellblazer book. Why should you buy Nightwing? Because it's the best Nightwing book on the wall. It's like, for a lack of a better term, it's like masturbating Nightwing fans. It's like, here's all this Nightwing. Let's get it all out. And it's all delicious and great and really well done and drawn, and like there's heartfelt energy in there, and it just feels so good to be a Nightwing fan and get a book like that and be rewarded for it and stuff. Why should you buy Wonder Woman? Because it's just furthering the story that's already been great. It's probably, even though all these books are great, Wonder Woman is still the best run out of all of these books, I'd say. So keep buying the Wonder Woman book like it's not going to be a dud. It hasn't been a dud in 8 issues. That's an incredible feat to have in and of yourself. Nightwing's even had some issues that me and Chris were like, this is okay. And just kind of move on. Chris laughing because he knows it's right. And then Black Panther. Why should you buy Black Panther? Because this is the best book that came out this week. Like these dudes came out of nowhere and absolutely killed it. So, you know, buy more comics, read more comics, make more comics. Rest in peace to Ed Piskor. I think that about sends us off, huh? Thanks for watching.